Everyone thought this kid was going to lose, with one comment saying, "At first I thought he was distracted." Not only was Yunker looking away, but he also started picking his nose while playing the game. So, what did this kid do that shocked almost everyone? Before starting the game, he was fixing his pieces like a surgeon, making sure everything is perfect and leaving the opponent's hand mid-air until he is done. His first move was chaotic. Pawn to e4, but the pawn ended up on d4 and he quickly fixed it. Then it was time for the knight, which was placed so poorly that it was standing over 4 squares at once. Then the other knight too, but in the same exact way. Thankfully he fixed that one and then started looking away. After the opening phase, the game finally slows down. The opponent pushes the bishop to attack the pawn. Yunker takes a glance, looks away, and then exchanges knights. He is staring away but probably thinking that this pawn is being attacked by 3 pieces, so he needs to do something. He decides to defend it with the bishop. But here is something most of you missed. If the opponent takes the pawn and goes through with the exchanges, he actually falls for a trap that loses the queen after bishop checks. This is why the opponent moves the king so that doesn't happen. Now he can attack the pawn, but Yunker defends it with the queen. The opponent starts thinking, there is not much he can do, so he goes for the obvious, placing the knight here to attack the bishop. Yunker quickly threatens the queen and then exchanges his bishop for the knight. This board seems boring, so Yunker does the only sensible thing. He starts picking his nose. He also moves the rook while doing so. Yunker completely predicted that the opponent would move the bishop here, so now the rook goes on the offensive. He places the rook and looks the other way. Black attacks the rook. Yunker thinks, hesitates for a second, and then protects the rook with the bishop. After the exchange, he places the bishop here, pushing for an exchange, and then gets back to picking his nose. This kid is not looking at the board, and when the opponent moves the bishop, Yunker shakes his head a bit and then places the queen on a4, attacking the pawn forward. This is a tough position to play in, and after a bit of time, Black pushes the pawn on f6, forcing the bishop back, then places the other pawn on a5, protected by the b6 pawn. This forces Yunker to finally start staring at the board. The game is getting serious. Yunker quickly identifies that the e6 pawn is only protected by the queen, so he pressures it with the rook. Don't mind the rook's position though. It might be over 2 squares, but you get the point. The opponent sees that too and brings the king closer so he can start defending. Then he pushes out the other pawn and forms a nice blockade that might force Yunker into a bad position, but he also knows that the king is more exposed. So, he goes queen e3. Now this pawn on e6 is even more fragile because it can lead to a check, but it also allows the queen to access the h6 square. Black stops that with the bishop, but then Yunker moves the queen here, which can check the king if the rook moves. Then, once again, the queen attacks the weak pawn. This is bad because Yunker is looking away again. He thinks he has this in the bag, and the opponent is sweating. After giving a check, Yunker moves the rook to e5, attacking the queen, but Black has a problem. You see, he can take with the pawn, but then this bishop could give a check and even end the game in a few moves. The opponent is thinking how he can take the rook, but it's just not possible. He spends a minute and then retreats with the queen. With only 3 minutes, this is looking very bad for the opponent. Yunker retreats the rook, but Black doesn't have many options. He exchanges bishops, but they were not doing much anyways, and now this pawn is being targeted again. Black defends with the rook, but then White moves the knight to h4, and Black cannot take because the pawn is pinned to the king. Since the knight is not an immediate threat, Black moves the bishop here to also defend the rook. But then Yunker does something insane. He moves the queen to h5, meaning the knight is no longer protected. What is he thinking? can't the opponent just take the knight? Yeah, he can actually. Yunker just made a huge blunder. The king is more exposed, but if played right, black should win this. But he got excited too fast. First, he went for a checkmate, which the queen blocked and checked. So, the opponent thought it was a perfect opportunity to try exchanging queens, completely overlooking queen c7, checking the king, and attacking the bishop. This move shocked the opponent so much, wasting another minute of his time, possibly wondering how did this kid plan all this. Now pieces are falling one by one. Black almost blundered the queen, time is getting to him, and the worst part, this attack with the queen and rook just cannot work because the white queen defends the g2 pawn. Yunker is still staring into the abyss, but he is waiting for the inevitable. He takes another pawn, checks the king, exchanges rooks, and prepares for endgame tactics, pushing this passed pawn into the finish line. He also blundered the queen in the process, but since the guy didn't have much time, he didn't see it. Yunker takes the queen, and the opponent forfeits, looking visibly upset because he might have won this game if he didn't underestimate Yunker, the abyss starer. Thank you for watching. Remember to check this other video too, and maybe subscribe for more chess videos. Bye now.